Hi everyone. Thank you for coming today to celebrate the launch of Daisy's first textile installation, Kiss the Storm. And it really is a celebration today because this piece has been 18 months in the making. We picked this location particularly at the Royal College of Physicians, mainly because of the medicine garden outside, which we felt was really apt for an artist who deals with the highs and lows of the human condition, but also healing and hope in their work. So this has been 18 months, maybe 2 years, as I said, in the making. We were originally approached by Textorial, which is a new initiative launched by Susie Allen over there and Laura Culfin. And they invite world-class artists to push their practice into the realm of textile, which has been an amazing journey to have gone on with Daisy. The other thing that today is for is to launch Daisy's first monograph. So it's a publication that spans 4 years of painting. And we have some amazing contributing texts by Dr Hester Westley, who's here today, who will be speaking with Daisy, by Sue Tompkins, Gina Birch, and also Skye Sherwin. Now, I'm going to tell you a bit about Hester, and I'm going to read it, so forgive me, because I don't want to get any of it wrong.
Many accolades.
Dr Hester Westley is the Project Director for Artists' Lives, National Life Stories at the British Library. For those of you who don't know, Artists' Lives is an oral history charity based in the British Library. The archive now comprises over 470 in-depth autobiographical testimonies with artists and art world professionals. Dr Westley has also published widely on post-war British sculpture and 20th century art education, and has very recently co-authored Restoring the Self in Routledge's new anthology, Theorising the Artist Interview. So we're delighted to have her here, so thank you very much for coming. I will leave the conversation to them now, and I have been told if there is a fire, you have to leave out to the front door. But thank you so much. It's really complicated. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. It really means a lot. It's a really special project for us, so thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It's a real privilege for me to be here, to escape the British Library and to be reunited with Daisy, because we've done some work together before. But most of all, I think, to share this opportunity to hear Daisy's own reflections on this really monumental textile installation, Kiss the Storm. We just had a lovely introduction, so I'm not going to linger on any formalities. But for those of you who know the work I do, you will know that I normally spend many, many hours in conversation, sometimes years. There are some of my subjects in the audience today. So I'm not going to do that. Please stop me if we get carried away. Timekeepers help. But what I'm really here to do is what I always endeavour to do with my work is to create a sort of quieter space outside the kind of conventional narratives that swirl around an artist's work, because artists' work is always being mediated through the eyes of the other, the curator, the art critic, the gallerist, the writer. And so really I just want to give Daisy some space to have the last word on her practice this morning. And this is a special event. You know, we are here to celebrate the completion of this beautiful thing. It's about the immediacy, I suppose, of this situation, the novelty of these circumstances. And Daisy's been very generous, I think, to share this with us when she probably hasn't even processed it all yet. It literally left the studio a matter of hours ago. And this is a new medium for Daisy, of course, but it has been long in gestation, about 1.5 years, I think. You've been working with Textorial, this brilliant new initiative run by Susie and Laura, who invite artists to develop their work in their artwork into textile. And we're really up close and personal this morning, aren't we, with it? We're sort of immersed in Daisy's world, this time not oil paint on canvas, but hand-knotted wool. And so I suppose my first very obvious question for you, Daisy, is how does it feel to be sort of releasing your work into the world this morning?
It's quite a lot to do it alongside the book as well, because I've been doing both projects side by side for like the last 2 years. So to finally have there was so many like detail orientated things to do, like eyes and brains on for every detail, and finally they're both done, and it's like, actually, I know I've been quiet like the last year or so, but it's like, actually this is what we've been doing, and yeah, I've worked really hard, and it's nice to have it out there for me as well, because this is the first time I'm seeing it flat, because I was working on it at home, so I could only hang it around the corner. So I've just seen it flat like an hour ago. So.
And what's your response to seeing it in this space? I mean, it's pretty dramatic, isn't it?
It is
Against
dramatic,
the wood panelled.
Yeah, it's amazing actually, and to have it in contrast with this sort of like traditional. Matt, did you say North Persian rug? This was. Yeah. So it's quite a contrast with like the contemporary and traditional going on, and yeah, it's nice to not just have it on a white wall, I suppose, and like bring some drama to it.
Absolutely. Well, we've talked a lot in the past, you and I, about your actual painting process. So I want to understand a little bit more about how it was for you working on something that was so collaborative, as opposed to being so personal and quite solitary in your studio. You've been working with different people on this. So tell me about what that's been like, working alongside evolving conversations.
Yeah, it's been quite a new thing to get used to, like this idea of handing your work or ideas over to other people to make, like particularly for the weaving in the background. And it was like, it started as based on a painting, and then we almost had to deconstruct it and simplify it. And then I suppose for 6 months, I just handed it over, and it was like, we'd FaceTime with the workshop, or they'd send videos and stuff. So in some ways it was disconnected, but it was like, I was as hands-on as I possibly could be with the Textorial team in their workshop in London. And then when I got it back last week, then that was the solitary period in my studio. But I was working alongside, the work the weavers and the embroiders had already made. So I do I definitely think of it as a collaborative process, and I'm like grateful for the Textorial team for letting me run wild, and we started off with traditional processes, and I've sort of done a lot of things that you wouldn't normally do to a textile, such as, no one else knows yet, but I was like going at the surface with a crowbar. What? Because I put paint on it, and then I wanted to get the paint off. And then it's like quite amazing how much it could take. And then I found like the best method was with a razor blade on the surface. I'm very sorry, but it has survived. So yeah, I did a lot of things I wasn't supposed to do, but I knew it would be all right, and I knew it could withstand it. Yes, it's amazing to see everyone's work like come together.
Well, I was going to say that to me, the weaving offers a way of manipulating space and texture and line as a material thing, because obviously in a painting, the oil paint sits on the surface, doesn't it? Whereas here, the image and the physical structure are one entity. Yeah. And so you've got these beautiful yarns sort of dangling over the edges, and so visible, the traces of your process, maybe not the incisors with the razor and the crowbar, but what were the real challenges? What was difficult? What surprised you during this
I think
journey?
Pretty much everything surprised me, because all of the practice I'd done on the samples, when I got this, none of that worked because the weave was tighter. So I basically had to adapt every second. So there's a lot of like crying and stuff, but then a lot of problem solving and coming up with solutions, and just like being hungry to get it done basically. And I suppose the difference with this is like with my paintings, I am always trying to like dig in and build the surface up. Here I actually had a surface that I could go into. And so that was a new thing to get my head around, and that's why like just having the paint on the surface wasn't enough. It wasn't intentional enough, you know. I had to carve in and make it part of the surface, and like constantly remind myself it's not a painting, it's not a flat object, it's got movement, it's going to be alive, and it can spill out of the edges, which I'm always trying to do with painting anyway, but here it actually can spill out, you know. You got like the threads hanging down and stuff like that, so there's a lot more space for movement and for it to be an object in its own right.
Well, you've just answered my next question.
Oh, sorry.
That's good. No, because what I think, I remember from the reading one of the texts in the books that you've got the joy of looking forward to, but Skye Sherwin describes Daisy's painting as an act of emotional cartography, which I think is spot on. It completely encapsulates what Daisy does, I think, and what they've done in this painting. It's so chromatically arresting, in the textile, you know, with the dirty pinks and oranges and deep purples and blues. And for me, when I saw it first, it was the emotional cartography, yes, but more than that, it actually reminded me of a literal map, and I thought of those medieval kind of mappa mundi, which are sort of representations of symbolic journeys rather than, of course, practical travel. But it's got this abundance of overlaid meaning, which I think really comes through here, and that's what Daisy does with painting too, isn't it? You're like an archaeologist, kind of scraping away at the layers, uncovering layers of meaning. And of course, if you know Daisy's work, colour is very associated with emotion, but also your inclusion of text contributes to this notion of mapping and emotional cartography, I think. And of course, a literary text is something that is woven. Daisy's putting text back into textile, and there is this intersection of ideas and many threads. So talk a bit now about your inclusion of text. Of course, it's very poetic, but I also want to hear about your material sort of inclusion, how it's sutured and sewn.
Yeah, I was quite excited to actually be able to sew into the surface, which is kind of like, I've wanted to make that illusion in my paintings effectively, and that's why I'm also happy that I was literally able to carve into the surface on this, because I didn't know how far I was going to be able to take it. And it's like that battle of, it's not a painting, it's not a textile, it's a bit of everything. So usually in my paintings I would attach these kind of like downward strips and sort of like flag-like banners with paint, but here I've attached them to the surface, and there's something about like the slowness of it, the slowness of attaching each phrase, word, whatever, with thread that allows you the time with it. It makes it really intentional, and you have to think about its purpose, really. Whereas with painting, when I do it in painting, if I'm attaching with oil paint, it all gets messed up and muddy anyway. Whereas this was like a cleaner, precise process, and I muddied it up after. And then you've also got the kind of hand embroidered sections of text, which I didn't do, an amazing embroider did, that kind of makes the text alive. If you look closely, you'll see like this is embroidered and there's sections in here embroidered. And yeah, it just makes it feel alive, and it's like adding that depth and that hand, and it just makes you aware that someone has stitched every thread. And then when I was going in and spending 14-hour days stitching every thread as well, it was like, yeah, it was like the labor involved is just have like loads of respect for it.
Well, you've just touched on a really important theme, I think, this idea of labour through textile work. And of course, textiles are traditionally entwined in, you know, with ideas of the functional, the folkloric, the female, the feminine, you know. And so I always think bringing textiles into the museum is a bit of an act of resistance in a way, because it's pushing against our very defined notions of art and craft. It's blurring those boundaries. And women and girls are traditionally taught needlework, of course. Even the Bauhaus pushed the women out of their painting studios and into the weaving workshops. So how much of this does feel like a political act for you, Daisy, reclaiming the textiles?
Yeah, I think in relation to all of that, I'm like not a traditional example anyway. And I go against like the gender norms and stuff. And like, I used my grandmother's sewing needles to sew all of this. So, and then they were passed down to my mum, and then I got them. But I never learned the skill of sewing properly. I learned it in the DIY punk, heavy-handed way. So that's kind of like broken any tradition of like functionality or in terms of that. Yeah, it's like, I mean, and if you read the text, it's quite political. It's I suppose about making space for like outcasts or queers or whatever. And yeah, it just reminds me of like sewing a patch on your jacket and like wearing your heart on your sleeve and stuff. And it's like quite political to be emotional, isn't it? And
absolutely.
Be vulnerable and be honest.
That's a really beautiful answer. Thank you. This is a good moment, I think, for Daisy, coincidentally, for this work to come into the world, because for some of you might have been lucky enough to see this incredible show at MoMA that's just finished. I haven't seen it, but a historical survey show which looks at weaving abstraction, essentially, and this is exactly that. And it highlights the issues of labour and identity, which are entwined with textile production. And I think it's a really useful lens through which we can consider Daisy's work, which has always explored, as Daisy's just said, shifting emotions, queer sensibility and personal experience. They're deeply personal objects. And I think this piece just takes all of it to a new level. And Annie Albers wrote this beautiful line in the 60s, which is that threads were among the earliest transmitters of meaning. And it seems to me that Daisy's practice, where materiality works in symbiosis with these deeply personal themes, weaving and textiles are the quintessential link between lived experience and art. And I wonder, just picking up on everything you've just said, how important is it for us to have any understanding of your life outside the studio, your autobiographical life, or not at all?
I think you can kind of pick up on a lot of it in there without me saying it all directly, but I suppose what would be important to know is that I've just been raised to make do and use what you've got, and that's why there's a lot of scraps, there's a lot of fragments, and basically just crack on and do it. So although the labour of it was daunting and I hadn't anticipated it at first, it was like, okay, well, it's not going to do itself, so let's just crack on and do it. Yeah, but there's lots of sentimental things in there that only I know that I'll keep for myself. But I suppose hopefully people can relate to them in their own way and sense that there's some tenderness in there. And,
well, you made something that we can all enjoy and share this morning, and thank you for that. But I do one last question, and then I think I should open it up to the floor, because you've probably got your own questions to ask, Daisy. Is who had you got in mind when you were making it, if anybody? Who was your audience?
Do you know what? It was just me. It was like, I want to achieve something. I want to try something different. I want to play. And then obviously once I get going. I can't really think about anyone else too much because it's like, otherwise it will stop me from being emotional or something. But I always know that like after that point, it's like all about, hopefully I can connect with like outsiders, outcasts, do you know what I mean? And then, yeah, it gives people like a way to start conversations, I hope. Yeah, and also for my nan, who was like a master knitter, and that thing of appreciating every thread. I suppose like I didn't learn knitting from her, which I wish I did, but I learned discipline from her. So that's like kept me going. It's like if my nan can sit there and knit all these things for that many hours all the time, then I need to crack on and do this.
Stamina, stamina.
It's stamina and discipline for sure. Yeah.
Thank you, Daisy. That's really, you've articulated it, you know, beautifully. And who else would like to ask Daisy a question? This is a good moment to sort of throw it open. If anybody, yes.
Hi. I love the fact, although you said it's very political, it's overwhelmingly positive. And I love that. It's not smash the patriarchy.
Yes.
But it says it in a life-affirming, positive way, which I think is really wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Practical now, I was just wondering where were the workshops and how did you select the palette? Was it remotely or did you choose every fabric and then send it to the workshop?
Yeah, so the workshops are in Varanasi in India, and I kind of worked in the workshop in London. So practically it would be like the workshop in India would send us videos, photos and stuff, and we'd be like, can we change this? Can we do this? But I was able to select all the colours by hand based on an original painting that had this palette. And obviously some I had to adapt, and some colours we had to simplify or let go of. So I think we ended up with something like 20 colours or something, whereas the original painting, if you look at every tone, maybe there were 50 colours or something like that. So, but I knew this was just going to be the base, so it was kind of refreshing to let go of what I was holding on to in the painting and just simplify the tones. And yeah, I had loads of fun doing that. It was like a puzzle. You had like hundreds of swatches of thread, and I'm quite in tune with colour, so I was able to pick it out actually straight away, and just it was the correct colour. It's like my idea of a fun time, basically.
Hi, thanks. Having worked with the material for some time now, and playing with it and going back and forth, are there things that, looking back, that you would have thought differently about at the beginning if you knew what you know now? And also the other element was, having worked on this material now, are there some elements that you take into when you go back to working on canvas that you would take from working on this?
Yeah, I'm already like itching to paint and bring embroidery into it, and I was doing these like paintings on faux fur, and this has suddenly ignited what I'm gonna do next. And I'll be bringing like, I had so much fun doing like these swatches of color over here. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna be bringing that into it. There are already like elements of like sewing the kind of flags together in the painting, but I just want to make it like super textured and yeah, just like do the labor and make it good, put in the hard work. I forgot your first question, sorry.
I was just, after working on this for so long now,
Yes.
looking back.
Yeah, so I think I went in like, how do I make this a painting? And actually, as soon as I put the paint on, I was like, oh, I don't want to do it. That was the wrong thing to do. But that's just part of it, isn't it? It's like, and then I figured out a way to incorporate some of the techniques of the painting, but also I think I was trying to fight the labour, to be honest with you. And then as soon as I put the paint on, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna have to sit down for 14 hours and do it. So I suppose mentally it was just about like giving in to the material. But I was surprised at how much it could take beating up, you know.
Any other questions? Susie?
Hi Daisy, I think it's amazing by the way.
Thanks, Susie.
We've all been watching it.
Thanks for letting me run wild.
Extraordinary. Extraordinary. So I'm just interested in the colours. Your colours are amazing, and all in your paintings and everything. And your text is heavily emotional, and even that we've been watching through it, and it's just as Dave was saying, it's so positive. And I think everyone will probably see different things in the text, which I think is wonderful. When you let a work go from the studio, you have to let it go, and you have to let people interpret it. But I was interested in the colours you choose in relation to the text, which is so emotional. Do you choose your colours in the same sort of way? Is there a parallel between the colours that you choose and the text that you're putting onto the works, or are they totally separate? How do you marry them?
I do kind of have my standard palette of this dark green colour that's like it's so dark it looks black, and I like the illusion of it. Like when you smudge it, it's actually a bit softer, so that kind of illusion works for me. And the same that like I don't use white because it's too harsh. I only use this kind of like neutral colour, so there's always going to be a softness to the colours, and they're not as harsh as they seem. And then with the weaving on the back and the embroidery I didn't just want it to be like a paint by numbers thing. I was like, what's the point of just stitching purple if it's purple? So I tried to do some colour theory and add like, here I did like pink over the red, which actually I would usually do in my paintings, and then red over the green and things like that. So that brings the depth to it. Like there's different tones of colours, and I was like, I think I started like with the mentality like I'm going to try and mimic what's in front of me, and then I was like, I don't need to hide anything. It needs to develop and be its own thing. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with the colours and the thread, and obviously the only way to mix thread, because it's such a singular gesture, is through layering and letting it, I don't know, if you look up close you'll see like the subtle colours coming through underneath, and then different colours of thread over the top to try and make those vibrations.
I have to say, I think your paintings are very immersive. Everyone is just totally drawn into them. That you're just surrounded by it, even though it's flat. But you've managed to do that with this, but in a very different way. And I think that's what's challenging, not to you just, but I think to all of us as well. I think that's really extraordinary.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks so much.
More questions, Daisy?
Okay. I was just wondering, what was the thinking around the 4 pieces?
Yeah, it's something I do in my paintings, the panels, and I like doing it that way because it gives the work room to grow. So it's like literally you can add more and more panels, or you can take some away, or you can move them around and change the composition. There's something about like it having space to grow as it needs to, that I find really works for me and the work. And space, the space is important, and the quiet moments. So yeah, having more panels allows you to do that. And then I like this like quite heavy-handed punk stitching in the middle to like draw it together, and just like that thing again of not trying to hide the way it's made, you know?
Good answer. Hi, Matt.
Daisy, I was wondering, because I know that you actually did paint the text before it was over at Parade. But when you were doing that, is that kind of planned, or was it a kind of stream of consciousness? Does it just come out, or do you plan the alerts?
It's a bit of both. I knew this was going to be Kiss the Storm, and I knew it was going to be that little poem even a year ago, like when we were, I suppose, well, that was part of it, is like I had to plan early, you know? But I knew this work was going to be that, and it kind of like continued on from my last show, Clouds for Breakfast, of like inviting the weather in and being domestic with the weather, because the weather is a constant in everyone's life. So it's relatable, and it changes by the second sometimes. And I think the more you can give over to the fact that it's always changing, the more you're okay with like how tempestuous it is, or how scary it can be, and how unreliable it can be. And yeah, I just love the idea of like, well, Clouds for Breakfast was like inviting the clouds in to have breakfast, but it also meant eating the clouds. And then the same kind of theme here of like, swallowing the rain and devouring the seasons, and just having them there with you, even though sometimes they're really difficult. And yeah, I suppose it's like the only way to get through hard times is to weather them, right? So it just makes sense as like a metaphor for emotions, that emotional landscape.
Can I just follow on from Matt's question? Your process of painting the words, and then you deliberately almost sabotage the letters. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it was quite funny to get them embroidered so precise, because underneath they're all smudged and almost weathered. So then to bring the preciseness back in was quite a contradiction, I suppose. But it's that thing again of like, usually I'm trying to like hide something because it's too much, but with this, it's like, there's no hiding anything. So I didn't want to hide the words. I just let them speak for themselves or be themselves. Yeah, whereas in the painting, I'm literally smudging and trying to erode or weather what's going on, but there's no hiding embroidery. It's so precise, you know? But you've got the kind of, I like that we've got two hands at play there. Got the embroider's hand and my hand on top of each other, you know? So it's, yeah, there's something really special about that, and gives it a real depth.
Well, I love it. What's it done for your practice? Do you think you go back to painting, or do you, I think you're more likely to come out in 3 dimensions?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's just reiterated the fact that I feel multidisciplinary. I'm a multidisciplinary artist, one of them, and I always have been. Like I was sewing like when I was at university 12 years ago, just stitching, and then everything kind of went to the side. Then it was painting, and it's slowly all coming back in, and I think, yeah, I'm like excited to break out of the canvas, and do the canvas and do everything.
Yeah, it's just fantastic. I mean, the only thing is it's very slow, isn't it?
So slow.
From painting.
That's what I struggled with.
And do you see any way out of that, or do you just prepare yourself in the slowness now and enjoy it?
Yeah, I think I just got to bury myself in the discipline of it.
Yeah.
But then I suppose whilst I was working on this, it was just this, you know? Whereas if I can get a balance of working on paintings and faster things at the same time and everything slowly come together, I think that could be like my ideal scenario in the studio. Yeah, precise things and then messy things.
Yeah, I love that idea of pace, the fast and the slow, and it also reflects your practice, which has always been so. You're so intuitive with your painting practice, but where you've talked really clearly about with this, you've had to work. You know, you've had to premeditate, haven't you, in a way that you probably haven't before.
Yeah.
And also this move into more collaborative working. So it's opened up a whole new sort of set of working rhythms, routines, practices. It's the start of something new and exciting. So I think on that note, let's give Daisy a round of applause.
I'd just like to say a few final thank yous to Textorial, the whole Textorial team, Susie and Laura and the rest of you who made this happen, and for allowing Daisy to be so free and giving them such freedom and faith to make whatever they wanted to, which was amazing. To the gallery team, Charlotte and Robita, and Kristen, who designed the book, which is outside, which has been a total labour of love, to all of the contributors in that, and to Hester, and finally to Daisy for everything. So yeah, thank you everybody for coming.